The topic of homosexuality in the Bible is complex and has been the subject of much debate among scholars, theologians, and religious communities. Here are some key passages often referenced in discussions about homosexuality. In the Old Testament, Leviticus 18:22 states, "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman, it is an abomination." In Leviticus 20:13 it says, "If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable." New Testament Romans 1:26-27. This passage is often cited in discussions about biblical views on sexuality. It describes how people abandoned natural relations and engaged in behaviors considered unnatural. The text has been the subject of much debate and interpretation over the centuries. Reflecting the evolving understanding of human sexuality within Christian theology, this passage speaks about people exchanging natural relations for unnatural ones. Scholars have examined the historical and cultural context of these verses to understand their original meaning and implications. The early Christian communities had diverse views on morality and behavior, which influenced how these texts were interpreted and applied, and includes references to same-sex relationships. These references have been pivotal in shaping Christian doctrines and teachings on sexuality. The interpretation of these passages has varied widely, with some viewing them as a condemnation of all same-sex relationships, while others see them as addressing specific practices in the historical context of the time. 1 Corinthians 6:9-10. This passage lists behaviors considered sinful, including what some translations interpret as homosexual acts. The original Greek terms used in these verses have been the subject of extensive scholarly analysis, with debates over their precise meanings and implications for contemporary Christian ethics. And 1 Timothy 1:10. This verse also includes terms that have been interpreted as referring to homosexual behavior among other immoral acts. The interpretation of these terms has evolved over time, influenced by changes in language, culture, and theological perspectives. Include terms that have been interpreted as referring to homosexual behavior among other immoral acts. These passages have played a significant role in the development of Christian moral teachings, and continue to be a source of discussion and debate within the church and broader society. Understanding their historical context and original language is crucial for informed interpretation. Different Christian denominations interpret these verses differently. The way these interpretations are formed often depends on the theological, historical, and cultural lenses through which the scriptures are viewed. Each denomination brings its own unique perspective, shaped by centuries of tradition, doctrinal teachings, and community experiences. Some view them as clear prohibitions against homosexual acts, citing the literal words of the text as evidence of their stance. These denominations often emphasize the importance of adhering strictly to what they believe are the unchanging moral laws set forth in the Bible, while others argue that they must be understood within their historical and cultural contexts. They suggest that the original intent of these passages was to address specific issues relevant to the time they were written, rather than to serve as blanket statements for all eras. For example, some scholars suggest that these passages reflect specific practices or issues present in ancient societies, such as temple prostitution or exploitative relationships, which were prevalent at the time. They argue that understanding the historical backdrop is crucial for accurate interpretation, rather than providing universal moral teachings. This perspective encourages a more nuanced reading of the scriptures, one that considers the evolving understanding of human relationships and ethics. It opens the door for more inclusive interpretations that resonate with contemporary values and experiences. Additionally, many contemporary Christian communities emphasize love, acceptance, and inclusion over strict interpretations of these texts. They may focus on broader messages in the Bible about love, such as John chapter 3, verse 16, which reads, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." While there is considerable debate surrounding the interpretation of biblical texts regarding homosexuality, many traditional interpretations affirm that the Bible clearly states that homosexual behavior is considered sinful. These interpretations often cite passages from Leviticus, which explicitly mention prohibitions against same-sex relations, and the writings of Paul in the New Testament, which also address this issue. This view aligns with specific readings of key scriptures from both the Old Testament and New Testament that outline prohibitions against such practices. For instance, Leviticus 18:22 and 20:13 are frequently referenced, as well as Romans 1:26, 27 and 1 Corinthians 6:9, 10 in the New Testament. These passages have been the cornerstone of traditional Christian teachings on the subject for centuries. However, it's crucial to recognize the diversity of thought within Christianity on this issue today. Many modern theologians and Christian communities advocate for a more inclusive interpretation of the Scriptures. They argue that the historical and cultural context of the biblical texts must be considered, and that the overarching message of the Bible is one of love, acceptance, and compassion. This perspective emphasizes the importance of understanding the Bible in a way that aligns with contemporary values of equality and human dignity. As such, the conversation within Christianity continues to evolve, reflecting a broader range of beliefs and interpretations.